the thing that's going to make people sit up and take notice and recognize the fact that these automations are working for you is when they start making money for you. So that's what I initially focused on. That's the whole kind of RevOps piece of kind of Syun Consulting. If you've got a CRM, you want there to be a good level of functionality within it. Some of it quite, native to the platform. But you can't ignore the fact that you're going to have to integrate tools out there, because as much as a CRM may say we've got a video tool that's built into the system, there's probably better tools out there that are dedicated, because they've had more investment, they've had more development, all that kind of stuff to kind of plug in. So yeah, it's about striking that balance in terms of the stuff that you can use within the CRM, and absolutely, I'm absolutely all for squeezing as much functionality out of your CRM as possible. But then don't also kind of ignore the fact that there are other platforms out there that you can plug in to your CRM to really add value as well.
Welcome to another episode of The Staffing Ring. I'm your host, Jason Lawson, and today we're joined by Kamal from Syun Consulting and recently also a founder for Rec-covered. Welcome, Kamal.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to today's session. Let's go for it.
I guess, just give us a little kind of insight to what inspired you to kind of create the company Syun Consulting. So what's your background? How did you get to that point? And what's the evolution you've had over the past 8 years of running this business?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I'd love to share my story actually. So my background is actually in recruitment for the last almost 19 years, from setting up my own recruitment agency back in 2006. And then building that up and then exiting it at the end of 2013. But something that kind of clicked, a bit of a light bulb moment while I had that recruitment business, was actually I got to a point where we'd outgrown our CRM, interested in the functionality, capabilities that I kind of felt my business needed at the time. So I'm a techie at heart. Before getting into recruitment, I sit on a trading floor developing rather complex spreadsheets for bonds and equities traders. So I'm a techie at heart, ended up in recruitment. So when it came to actually changing the CRM for my own business, I really jumped into it. I grabbed it with everything and kind of threw myself into it to really ultimately find the best platform for my business, because there's a lot of products out there. And it was really sort of wading through that and making sure that we got the right, not only the right platform, but we were getting the most out of it as quickly as possible. And that was my light bulb moment, because when I started doing my requirements exercise and understanding what my business needed, which again, something I focus a lot on with my clients, I had a list of probably about 80 questions or sort of stuff like that, right? And when I was grilling the poor CRM providers when they were coming in to do a demo, a lot of them were saying, we never get this. When we get to most recruitment businesses, we never get this, because most recruitment businesses are led by very sales focused individuals and processes, which is absolutely fine. That's correct and should be the case. But then that kind of element of actually understanding what you need for your business, because the tech is an important part of it, it kind of gets left behind. So that was my light bulb moment before I sold the business, actually. So that got me kind of thinking. And then when I did exit the business, I was like, I want to sort of position myself as somebody who's obviously run a recruitment business, take it from startup to exit, and got involved in some really clever projects along the way. And I want to help other recruitment businesses with these challenges. So that's where I sort of started pitching. I had a lot of phones slammed down on me and doors shut in my face. And honestly, because it's not an easy sell to pitch to a recruitment business, saying, "Oh, you need somebody to help you with this is the single biggest digital transformation that you're going to do in your recruitment business. Yet you're going to do it blind. You're going to do it with inexperienced staff, no expertise. Are you sure about this?" And some people said, "Well, that's no, we're all right. We'll sort it out internally." So, but I stuck to my guns, and I managed to pick up a considerable project from one CRO to another that had gone a bit pear-shaped.
Right.
And I was brought in to kind of help sort of steady the ship and ultimately drive many of the things that would be done outside of the CRM through the CRM, from general consultant activity to compliance to integrations, all this kind of stuff, reporting. I was able to do that for a business that was running 400 contractors out at the time across the world, kind of thing. So, and then from there, it's just snowboarding, honestly. Over the last 8 years or 9 years almost, I've worked with somewhere between 250, coming up to 300 businesses now, all on a range of CRM, tech, data, and then obviously automation, AI have crept in recently as well, kind of thing. So those are the things that I've been kind of keeping myself busy with, and that's kind of my backstory to where I'm at now.
Yeah. Well, I think, just having that experience of running your own agency, one provides credibility, right? Having those conversations, but also you've got that kind of authority and expertise of having also done it yourself and then doing it time and time again for others. So
Yeah,
what
I think
have you
empathy.
seen?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
sorry,
think
go ahead.
empathy is the word there. It's kind of,
Yeah.
when I speak to my clients, and typically I'll speak to owners of recruitment businesses. I don't shy away from reminding them that I've sat in their seat. So I know the challenges of consultants maybe not updating the CRM of clients. Sometimes not playing ball with stuff, with candidates not turning up. For interviews, all this kind of stuff. Right, I've been through it, so I'm certainly wiser for the experience. But I would say I do like the seat that I'm in now, where I'm again just working alongside my clients to really help them kind of just be slicker, productive, profitability, efficient through a combination of these key elements.
What I see and what I experience, not just in recruitment, but in all industries, is software, nice shiny new box, you install it, and everyone's like, well, what is this? How's it going to help me? It feels like, CRM, most salespeople, often do struggle with just that discipline of using the CRM to its fullest extent. So
Yeah.
how have you seen that evolve? Or, what has become easier? What's become harder for agency leaders to have their teams to really adopt and use new tools?
I think it's quite simple, actually. Simple to identify, not so simple to deploy. And it's actually knowing where the wins are going to come, because ultimately the consultants are sitting there thinking, okay, you could pitch it as, oh, there's another bit of kit that you now need to use, or this is a new system that you'll be using, and they're going to be like, well, what's in it for me? So it's really
Spot,
kind of,
yeah.
if you can sort of really get your head around that, to say, well, listen, look, we're on CRM A, but we moved to CRM B, and these are the reasons why. This is how it's going to benefit you. But then there's also a level of expectation, right? That this is what we're going to need from you in order to make it happen in terms of usage. And something I say a lot, right? I've been involved in about 90, managing about 90 implementations now, and different businesses, shapes and sizes. But one thing I say to my clients pretty much as soon as we kick off, I was like, listen, look, this is not only about changing your tech, right? There's a mindset change coming here, because what you don't want to do is spend this effort on new tech, getting a project manager in, all this kind of effort, all this cost and energy and all the rest of it, to 12 months later being on a platform and just using it in exactly the same way, where spreadsheets are still floating around and being used, and people are just silos of data and all this kind of stuff. So and that kind of message does need to come from the top, and the clients I've seen been really successful when it comes to rolling out new CRMs are the ones where the leaders, owners of the businesses, and leaders within there are really switched on and bought in, and they know they're clear on kind of where the value is going to come for their team. They know that it's going to benefit them in terms of searching, pinpointing candidates and clients quicker, being able to get candidates out there to their clients with more accuracy, with more relevancy, quicker, and it's ultimately that's going to then feed back into better results, and that's a really key thing. It's never. I had a conversation this morning actually with somebody that called me up, and I said, listen, it's not about changing tech for the sake of changing tech. And I'm a tech consultant, and I'm saying that, right? It's not about just putting stuff in place just for the sake of it. There needs to be a business rationale behind it. So you actually need to be a little bit smarter and do your due diligence. Actually, where are the wins going to come for our business when we're embarking on this journey, and how are we going to deploy them, and and how soon can we really expect the benefits of those to arrive. And if you can be clear on those, that you communicate that message properly, people will buy into it, because ultimately they're going to benefit from it.
Yeah. Let's peel the layers of that onion back a bit more. I think that's certainly a big topic in terms of 2021, 2022. People just had the cash, they were buying new tools, nothing was really kind of connecting, data silos and tools just not being used. So if I'm an agency leader today, I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, yeah, I feel like we're just not being as productive as we should be or could be. What, I guess, where do I start? Like, what's step one?
Again, quite simple. Understand your processes. Understand what's being done at the moment, and see where the bar is at. This is what it's going to do to help you understand where the kind of incremental wins are going to come from, and where the really opportunities lie, and whether that's what I mean by where those opportunities lie, or whether it's okay, that process. Let's look at the sales process, right? BD. This is something I see a lot where it's, for some reason, there's a lot of this kind of stuff being done on spreadsheets, and then even as part of my implementations, I say to my clients, listen, look, you need to kind of have this sort of amnesty on those spreadsheets and say, listen, look, hand them in. We're now going to channel this stuff through the spreadsheet, because that kind of whole lead generation, business development process, especially, which is fundamental to a recruitment business, that is something that has so many opportunities there to kind of really maximize. And again, but how are you going to identify that? Well, you need to look at what the process is at the moment, right? You need to do
Right.
this is the benchmark now, but then look at kind of where those wins are going to come from, and where those wins are going to come from is either better process, simply put. You may be able to do that with the same tech. So you don't need to invest in something else. You could do it with the same tech. Or there's areas where there's a very manual element involved. What I mean by that, to add a bit more context, is around, especially when it comes to people within the business, like mapping out a market, and I'm going to research. People say they do research, and I'm not entirely convinced on how productive that research ends up being, because it's very time consuming. It stops, it starts. These are things where tech can really support you in actually helping you kind of carry out those tasks, especially now with the last 18 months with AI getting involved as well. This is stuff that I'm certainly working on personally to help my clients with, to help them actually, let's remove the manual element from this as much as possible. It'll still be there to a degree, but let's remove it as much as possible, and let's get some tech to actually do this legwork for you, and do about 80% of the legwork for you, and then you've got 20% of the stuff just kind of quality control and all the rest of it. So that's what I'd be looking at. To answer your question, Jason, is look at what you're doing now, and then from there be able to identify, okay, we're doing these processes from sales to resourcing to back office. Just consider those three sort of sections, break them down into smaller areas, and then from there you can really target key areas where, bang, we know that there's an opportunity for automation here. That's going to save us X amount of time. That this is going to lead to X amount of activity, because it's going to be automated and not relying on individuals to do. So that's what my sort of first bit of advice would be.
And from the agency leaders that I guess come out the end of the transformation with much better productivity and all the ROI and the gains. When you look back at where you started that consultation with them, I guess what characteristics or mindset do you think are most important in terms of going from A to B in terms of that journey?
I think it's a mixture of things. I mean, some clients that I worked with, like I said, if I think back to probably one of my first big projects, they had some real gaps in their compliance process, which they knew were kind of it was a risky sort of thing to be doing. They weren't doing anything wrong, but the process was so manual, and there's so much room for human error, that they're like, listen, look, we need to do something here to actually make that more streamlined. So that could be something where it's like a compliance or regulatory kind of thing that sort of triggers you to do that. The other triggers really, which seem to be sort of quite probably in certainly the business that I'm speaking to, is two things really. It's they want to automate. These businesses want to automate. They see the word automation being flung around left, right, and centre, but they don't know what to automate and how to do it, and also when to do it. In what order do we need to do these things? So that's one of the first big drivers. And the other thing, and probably, like I said, probably in the last 2 years, since the market has been quite tight for many businesses, they want to be cleverer with their marketing and be able to segment their audience, whether it's candidates or whether it's clients. And that's the kind of stuff that's then drawing them back to saying, listen, we've got this data. We in our CRM, we don't trust it at the moment. It's got so many gaps. It's out of date, but we've spent a lot of money doing building this up over time. What can we do here to kind of help? And that seems to be another trigger where we've been able to go in, look at their data, and say, look, these are the gaps. This is what's good. This is what's bad. This is what could be improved. And then from there, putting a plan together to say, look, this is how we're going to address it. Like I said, for me now, I mean, some of the stuff I'm doing now, I honestly wouldn't have been able to do 2 years ago because the tools weren't readily available. AI specifically that I'm talking about. So I'm using a lot of AI on many of my data projects to actually help me understand the data and how to actually help enrich it, research it, and then we're able to kind of put it back in my client CRM if they need to. And that's the whole purpose of this Rec-covered service that we've recently launched, which is really about focusing on taking your existing data and you not having to suffer with, oh, I don't trust it, I don't have faith in it, it's going to bounce, I'm scared, all these sorts of things. You get it in shape, and that's really what sort of pushed me to launch it as a dedicated service. It's stuff I'm doing anyway. In honesty, it's just that it kind of warrants its own service.
I did want to kind of ask about that because I'm just looking at your LinkedIn profile again. You're introducing Rec-covered. This is a 2025 launch, so congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Cheers.
So yeah, I can see the obvious connection between you going in technology transformation, automation, AI. All relies on good data, enriched data, up to date data. So just take us through a little bit about, and I know you've got your Clay kind of certification and how you use Clay. So it'd be really fascinating if you've got a kind of a real example or kind of hypothetical example of, where you've seen kind of that data transformation to help the full business transformation.
Yeah, definitely. And the Clay stuff is something I'm getting. That is just kind of part of my day now, in honesty, to actually utilise that on behalf of my clients, where we capture, where we use data to actually put it through Clay and use a mixture of things, whether it's enrichment, whether it's validation, AI. We plug it all in there, and then we put it back in the CRM. I mean, to give you a kind of concrete example of something that we're able to do, which I think it's always good to kind of put into context because there's so much you could do within Clay, but like I said, I focus on the enrichment side of things. So I've got a client, they work in construction, and they said to me, listen, look, we've got X amount of companies, nothing's coded up, right? Construction covers all these like landscaping, civils, new builds, all this kind of stuff, right? So they had a clear idea on the areas that they specialise in, and they said to me, listen, we've got this data, but what we want to do, and that's why I said, look, know where are you going as a business, and they were quite good in that way, because the owner said to me, listen, look, if we could split out, if we could identify which kind of areas within construction that these businesses work in, I can then dedicate those accounts to key people within my team. I know the new build team will be there. But at the moment they couldn't do it because there's no way segmenting it. So what we're able to do without going into too much complexity was actually take their data. They provided their company data. We were able to actually go off and for each of those companies find their website if they had a website. And then from there, we were able to use AI to actually research everything about that company and say, basically the prompt was, research that website and tell me if it's one of these 5 values. Is it landscaping? Is it what do they specialize in? and draw a conclusion based on kind of what you're doing, right? And we were able to do that successfully. Obviously, it depends on the website having that sort of information kind of being visible, because
Yeah.
if it's not there, then obviously you can't find it. But we were able to take about 40% of their database, their companies, which they didn't have any coding on, and we were able to and actually code them up accurately through AI. And then we were able to actually code up each contact within those companies with those same values, because then they could then use that for, like, okay, I want to do a mail shot or a sequence to every client that works in the new build space, because we've got loads of candidates in that area, all that kind of stuff. This is
Yeah.
stuff they couldn't do. Yeah, they just couldn't do it because, like, we don't know. We know they're in construction. That's not good enough now, and I'm seeing a lot of that kind of stuff. That's just one example. There's other stuff around. I've done a project for a company that does medical device recruitment.
Right.
That medical devices cover all sorts, right? Diabetes, dental, kind of, all these sorts of things. And I'm no expert in medical devices, right? But I do understand data. But I was just able to get some clear guidance from my clients, and they were like, we just need to know. It's not good enough to know if it's medical devices, right? What we'd like to know is, do they specialize in dental devices or what? Because that's going to change their approach, their messaging, all that kind of stuff, and outreach to them. And that's the key thing. And again, where AI is really coming to play is, like, listen, look, there's loads of B2B data sources, Apollo, Zoom Info, all this kind of stuff, right? But if you go to them, and if you want to find, again, like I've done some work for a private equity business, you can't search for private equity. You just type in, it's just financial services or stuff like that, right? And even if you could type in, like, venture capitalist, okay, that's fine. That could appear, but then they could cover a really broad range of areas. And again, one of the projects I've done was, like, my client was like, I only want to know if their portfolio within private equity is within this or within this. I don't care about anybody else. So we're able to kind of take a list of companies, and actually through AI, through the research that we're able to do, and this is where we plug in Clay, actually do a lot of that research, find that out, make a really strong and accurate conclusion. Then we put it back in their CRM, and they were ready to go. They're ready to target these businesses with confidence and relevancy, and that will hopefully give them a better chance of getting a foot in the door.
It really is a step up from, as you say, even 2 or 3 years ago, isn't it, in terms of the ability to surface those insights at scale, with confidence. And the so what out of that is business development, marketing. The segmentation just helps customize, and whether you've got different parts of the agency who are working on different areas, and so it just provides so much more context and quality data.
And even the most basic thing that a CRM is used for, searching. It's like it sorts that out, right? And that's the big that common thing I see. Oh, we can't search on CRM. Like, well, okay, well, you need to start coding things up. You need to start adding relevant bits of data. But that's the number one kind of purpose that you're using a CRM. And if people can't search in there, they're going to go off into LinkedIn and job boards and do stuff outside of the CRM, and you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot, kind of thing. So as you said earlier, Jason, it's really about getting the data on point, and that will lead to so many benefits.
Indeed. Recently, I had a episode with John Brooks, who heads up the Value Advantage. So it's all about pricing, but also much more than pricing. It's what's the value that the agency are, giving and communicating to clients. So, we're talking a lot about the technology and automation and data. How do you suggest to agencies balance that flexibility of the operational kind of data, automation, and then the value-driven approach of, this is a people business. We will still want to maintain that person-to-person communication and value. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I think to be quite sort of pragmatic about it, ultimately, when I speak to businesses about putting in automation, the thing that's going to make people sit up and take notice and recognize the fact that these automations are working for you is when they start making money for you. Yeah. So that's what I initially focused on. That's the whole kind of RevOps piece of kind of site consulting, where we're like, listen, look, there's stuff you can automate in the back office. That's fine. A contractor's going to start. You can automate something that goes out to them to request something and do that. That's fine, right? That's not difficult to do. But if you can really nail automations that actually help generate revenue, this is what's going to take. This is what's going to make the owners of the businesses sit up and take notice and think, actually, I could see some results from this. Let's now push it out to further areas of the business. That's what's going to make that kind of mindset change a little bit. Thinking, okay, we are a people business, absolutely fine. Nobody's saying replace your people, but just make their lives easier. And I think the reality is people do want to start seeing some sort of value pretty quickly on automations, because there is some skepticism around how effective they are. And so that's why it's even more important to understand where in the business are these the returns going to come from. And normally my starting suggestion is look at re-engagement campaigns. That's the first thing, right? You've got people on your database that a candidate, for example, they went out and interviewed 6 months ago, didn't get the job because somebody better got it, but they're forgotten about. They're left in the ether, right?
Right.
This stuff that people aren't, because someone's have moved on with their lives. They're not going to go back and, oh, hi mate, how you doing? It's just not going to happen, right? These are things that you need to get automations happening within your business. And again, things like same applies to clients that haven't again have lapsed in terms of time, but you've had some traction with them in the past. These are things that you don't need to have people there sitting there saying, oh, why haven't you spoken to such client in the last few weeks? Get automations to actually do that initial kind of outreach, and then hopefully you can set up a call from there. So that's really where I like to. That's the thing that I think proves to business owners that, listen, look, there's some real value here.
Yeah.
And it even makes the case stronger. So you don't apply this stuff across the board in one hit. That's not what it's about. It's about taking those kind of key areas within your business that are going to lead to more activity, better activity, and then you'd expect that to lead to a greater chance of revenue as well, kind of thing. So that seems to be a thing that helps overcome that kind of obstacle of, or I'm not sure about automation, or it's going to.
Yeah.
We don't turn to robots. It's not about that. It's about supporting it.
So there's been a massive increase in the rec tech suppliers and vendors and offers and products, and there's something new coming out almost every week on LinkedIn. So again, as an agency owner, it must be like mind-blowing sometimes to think about the hundreds of options out there. How do you think about, like we talk about again, the critical nature of data and automation and joined up systems? How do you think about, just from a market maturity of, there's some vendors doing more like an operating system where everything is all in one kind of package, versus more like a integration marketplace where you can kind of pick and choose best of breed? How do you see that like today, and perhaps going out 2025, how things might change?
There's a balance to strike, right? If you've got a CRM, you want there to be a good level of functionality within it. Some of it quite native to the platform, but you can't ignore the fact that you're going to have to integrate tools out there, because as much as a CRM may say we've got a video tool that's built into the system, there's probably better tools out there that are dedicated, because they've had more investment, they've had more development, all that kind of stuff to kind of plug in. And so it's about striking that balance in terms of the stuff that you can use within the CRM. And absolutely, I'm absolutely all for squeezing as much functionality out of your CRM as possible. But then don't also kind of ignore the fact that there are other platforms out there that you can plug in. You'll know many of them, Jason, that you could plug into to your CRM to really add value as well. And you're right, it is an absolute minefield out there. Even I find that as a techie, there's so many products, but the number one question I get asked, Jason, is what's the best CRM, right? And it's kind of that kind of holy grail, and I'm like, and I'm really conscious about this and saying, look at A, B, or C, right, and go off and knock yourself out. I don't like to sit on the fence, but what I say to my clients is, listen, look, the best one for you is the one that meets your requirements as much as possible. They're like, well, what are requirements? Well, you need to figure that out, right? If you need somebody like me to come in and help you, then absolutely fine. But you need to have a clear idea. You're sitting in the business on a day-to-day basis. You know the gripes that your consultants have. You know the kind of shortfalls that your system has. Document all this. Yeah, it doesn't need to be War and Peace, but document it. So look, these are 20 things that we just need in our business because they're going to add value, and that's really what should be your kind of Bible almost when you
Right.
go out to do demos and grill the CRM vendors like I did when I was changing my CRM, because those are they're going to have some non-negotiables in there, and that will allow you to kind of whittle out the ones that meet that criteria or not. You really need to be clear on kind of what you need, as much as possible. You don't need to be an expert in this kind of stuff, but you need to have a clear idea of where the value is going to come, whether that's going to be better searching, uh, the ability to do some marketing, uh, hooking up with your paying bill system, whatever it is, right? These are the things that are kind of you're doing anyway within your business, but I would say document them and be clear on them, and then from there, that will benefit you so much when it comes to going out there and go to market and saying, well, look, I've got these platforms, which ones are right for my business.
Yeah, so it's very much about like, what are my requirements? What are my must-haves? What are my nice-to-haves? And that also helps not getting blindsided by a shiny new feature or product out there in the market, right? Which there are many. As you say, many are brilliant. Some are kind of new to the market, so untested. I'd also recommend people, speak in your network, speak with,
Definitely.
people who are using different tools, because certainly what I find is most agency operators and leaders are very happy to share the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Yeah, yeah,
and
true.
that helps.
That's a great point. And if you think about it, the analogy is like you make these requirements for many things that you do in your life, right? If you want a new car, you're going to say it needs to be an SUV, it needs to be black, it needs to have heated seats, or whatever it is, right? You'd have that list, when you write it down or have it in your head. I only want to spend 30 grand on it, whatever it is, right? You have that in your mind. But when it comes to buying software, the kind of the rules don't seem to apply for many, and that's why that was a big kind of thing for me. Where I was like, listen, there's so much money being wasted on tech that is not getting used, or it's just not the right fit for businesses. And so, look, that's not always the failing of the software. It's actually the failing of the people that are buying it, because they just weren't clued up enough to say, well, we had three products and we chose that one because it sounded the best in the demo, but
Right.
the other two could have actually helped you more because they do X, Y, and Z. If you don't have that background and research, in your mind, then you're not going. Chances are that you're not going to make the best decision that you could have.
So, for me, really thinking about what you do and the service you provide, unless a agency is fully mature, fully transformed, or they've got their own in-house kind of RevOps, I think every other agency, to me, it's like a no-brainer. Why not, bring on you as a service provider to help them, or other people that offer a similar service.
Hey.
What do you think? What do you think is holding back some leaders, or what's perhaps some misconceptions they might have about bringing somebody like you into their business?
Um, the stuff I had before, and if I think back to some of the objections I had when I first started off, it was kind of, oh no, we'll figure it out ourselves, and this is the way we've always done it. So there's just that sort of reluctance to even kind of accept any suggestions. There is an element of that. Um, I mean, I think I'm quite fortunate, touch wood, where pretty much all my work is inbound. All my leads are inbound. I really don't do any marketing. Obviously, doing podcasts and webinars is obviously obviously a publicity thing for me. But that's pretty much all I do. And then the odd mail shot. I send some stuff on LinkedIn. But apart from that, so I'm quite fortunate the fact that when people are picking up the phone and calling me, they've already kind of come to the point where we need some help. We need some help. You know, I'm off with I'm seeing a client next week, and I spoke to them 2 years ago, and they were pulling their hair out. Don't know about changing CRM. Don't know about that. Don't know about, and the timing wasn't right, in terms of getting me in, because they just wanted to see what they could do themselves. But they're now at a point where they're like, we're we're doing well. We're doing well as a business. However, we know we could be better. So maybe that now was the point to bring you in. So I don't know what that tipping point is. If I knew, I'd probably bought it and I'd try and sell it. Um, but yeah, there seems to be, whether it's, we've reached a point where we just need an element of kind of just being slicker is the
Yeah.
kind of key thing that and again, another thing as well I should mention is that some people have just been stung. In honesty, unfortunately, they've been stung in terms of spending money on tech. Down there, it's just been money down the drain. In honesty, so before you know, they leap into kind of purchasing other things, they're like, "Come on, can you just help us here and just help us build out a bit of a roadmap
Yeah.
to where
Yeah.
we're going and how tech, data, automation, AI are going to sort of feed into that."
It does make sense. You're providing a service and a value add and ROI, which is, it's not a hard product. So word of mouth, referrals, reputation, yeah, I can see why that's your majority of your kind of inbound. Right. Let's kind of wrap up and we've got a few kind of finishing questions for you. So just curious, like over your career and as a small business owner and leader, has there been any kind of mantras or pieces of advice that you've been given along your journey that's really stuck with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been fortunate to work with some very smart people, and I'm like a bit of a sponge where I'm like, okay, just you should kind of learn and kind of pick up good habits. Don't get me wrong, you need to have a strong work ethic. At the day, working for yourself is not for everybody. But I wouldn't change it for the world. Touch wood kind of thing. So I would say there's one particular bit of advice. I think that the probably thing that thing just sticks out where I've probably sometimes maybe a bit of imposter syndrome has sort of kicked in. I'm like, I remember when a business called me in to kind of help them with their tech, and they said, oh, you're going to be in a room, and they actually put me in the boardroom, and I had there's a mega boardroom, like mega
Yeah.
table, and I was sitting there thinking, oh my god, I was like, this feels a bit daunting, kind of thing.
Right.
I better flip and do a good job. And I managed to. I think I did. I've got a few projects with them, and kind of thing. But I think with this, you need to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You need to be, and that comes from a mixture of things. And honestly, getting a few projects under your belt is kind of key. Getting some really good client feedback is boost the ego. I
Yeah.
try not to have too much of an ego, but I think that does give an element of confidence. It's good. I've got a really strong family around me as well, so that's always helpful as well. Very
Yeah.
supportive and encouraging. That always helps. So
It
no,
does.
generally, there's you have to have self confidence. Experience is obviously a valuable thing, but it only comes with time. In honesty, so I've been lucky to work with some really good businesses and who've really become my advocates. Most of my clients kind of will kind of mention my name,
Yeah.
WhatsApp chats and all that kind of stuff. So they've really been advocates for me, which is priceless in honesty. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a pretty good place to be, I think.
And yeah, there's so many parallels there with agency leaders or even recruiters, right? It's about confidence. It's about leaning into those challenges and um, situations where you feel like you're a little bit out of your comfort zone, and that's where I think the best do kind of push through and lean in. So yeah, I think that's a great takeaway.
Yeah, you
Um,
kind of got to, I get on calls sometimes, Jason, and I don't even know what the client is going to say to me. Obviously, I don't know, right? They're like, come on, we speak. So I'm like, I get off the call, I'm like, right, I better figure this one out, right? Because I'm
uh,
like, I've had some stuff thrown at me, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to get my thinking cap on around this. So you've got to kind of be very agile, and I think I'm quite good in terms of my mindset is just like that anyway. I mean, I was out with a few friends last week, and from some old school friends actually. So close to about 40 years. We've been friends, and we meet up a couple of times a year. And I went out with them, and it came into conversation. I've never owned an iPhone. I said, "What are you worried about?" I said, "I've never." And recently, my kids have wanted iPhones, so they've got iPhone. But I've always been Android. They're like, "So why have you not got an iPhone?" I said, "Look, there's nothing wrong with that iPhones. They're fantastic products, but for me, I don't like just something that's just been set up and it's ready to go. I want to play around. I like playing around with
Right.
stuff. That's my kind of thing. I want to, I want to be able to do stuff with it." And I'm like, so I'm not knocking iPhones at all for any
Yeah.
Apple fans out there, but I'm like, for me, it's just never been a thing. I like getting under. I like playing with tech and understanding it and squeezing as much out of it as possible.
And looking forward, 2025 and beyond, of course, AI is going to become just more and more important. What excites you about the industry? The recruitment staffing industry.
Let's take AI as a given, right? That's going to happen. It's going to
Yeah.
impact all our lives, kind of thing. I think what I'm really finding quite sort of heartwarming is there's definitely a mindset change coming as well, because this stuff is being flung at you left, right, and centre. AI is doing this, and automation is doing this, all this kind of stuff, and it's taking time for people to actually wake up and realise that there is some opportunity there. But the fact that that's happening, and I know it because I've got my clients asking me about all this kind of stuff. I think that's the biggest thing, where it's not even a sell now. It's kind of like, well, you need to be doing it. You need to be ahead of the game. How are you going to do that? Okay, you need to get good people in place, absolutely. But where can you really find some competitive advantage? And how you're going to do that is actually by being cleverer, being smarter, and trying to be ahead of the curve. And that's why I think people tap into me and other consultants out there, and
Yeah.
and their network to actually figure out what's worth doing. I mean, I was at a lunch last week and I was speaking to a business owner who, in my eyes, is quite a pioneer in terms of the stuff that he does. And I said to him, "Well, fair play for the way you've adopted tech and all that stuff." He said, "To be honest with you," he said, "the reason I do it is to stay ahead of the game." He said, "I can't. If we didn't do this stuff, we'd be falling back." And he works in a very competitive world, and he's like, we wouldn't be fastest first to the sort of get our candidates or be involved with our clients without the tech actually
Yeah.
do a lot of work for us. So it's actually like I said, just trying to stay ahead of the game, and like I said, I think that's like I said, people are far more open to it now
Yeah.
than
I
they
think
maybe were
that's
pre.
such a brilliant kind of keynote in terms of it is about mindset with the technology, right? And being curious about it and trying things, and even personally, get ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, pay your $20 a month, to actually get that premium service. And even that, you start to think, well, what's possible? You can use it for Q&A to kind of help you kind of think through things. I think there's so much at hand that people can and should really lean into. So brilliant. Just to wrap up, any questions or any things we should have touched on which we didn't? And then finally, where can people find out more about you and your businesses?
Yeah, data is so important, honestly. Yeah, and obviously I'm quite biased when I say that, but I really mean it. It's kind of you want to start doing some clever things in your business, but the foundation is good quality data. You need to be able to trust in what you're doing, because if you start trying to plug in automations on poor quality data, you're just going to cause more headache than you need in your life, in all honesty. So it's really about getting that right. It's then obviously nailing your processes to make sure they're as slick as possible, and then from there figuring out what tech you're going to need to actually kind of make that happen. So if you can get those three things in good shape, I said you could quite well do it internally with the existing tech you got. You don't necessarily need to be out there spending loads of money on new tech, but look at what you've got at the moment, see where the improvements could be made, get your data in shape, and you'll be in a far better place. And then you can start realistically thinking about automation, AI, how they're going to help your business.
So I see you've got signconsulting.com. You're, as I say, active on LinkedIn, so we'll drop your link there in the show notes. Any other socials or websites
I'll
you
be
want
at
to
the
shout
expo in
out?
a few weeks' time. If anybody wants to come and grab me for a coffee, I'll be there on the first day. So yeah, I'll be walking around there, just say hello to a few people. But yeah, generally the Syun Consulting website is probably the go-to. Obviously, we've got Rec-covered now as well.
Right.
So you can put an inquiry through there, and I'm more than happy to kind of talk businesses through how they could benefit from, like I said, just taking their data that they've currently got, and making it better. And again, what we're able to do is not only take that data, improve it, but actually put it back in their CRM, if need be as well, sort of thing. So they're ready to go with it and do something with it.
Brilliant. Well, I think there's so much there in this episode to kind of take away and actually use and deploy. It's like really actionable insights. I think we've talked through today, and as you say, the data, think about automation, and then the tech. Don't jump at the tech in the first step. Think about also where are your gaps, what are your requirements. So I think there's a nice playbook there, isn't there, in terms of those 4 or 5 steps. So I really appreciate the time, Kamal, and your insights and experience. As I say, I'll drop all the links in the show notes, and thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Staffing Ring.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.